I think most of us had the understanding that I'll Be was the wedding song, and I was listening to it in my 40s now, and I've been this guy, but I feel like this song is about a guy that really f***ed up.
You managed to interpret it correctly as far as my intention. The truth about that song is that I was not an abject failure. I always wanted the bandwidth to be whatever people needed from it.
Welcome to episode 2 of Millennial Sleepover. I'm Rod Kim, and I'm so happy today because my guest, Edwin McCain, not only had two of the biggest love songs of the 90s and early 2000s, but was also probably the first artist on TikTok that followed me back and DM'd me, and most importantly, told me how close I actually was to my observation and speculation that the song I'll Be wasn't just a romantic love song, that it also had to do with a lot of like heartache and struggles in life. That was a little bit more than a year ago, and since then Edwin has been such a great friend and fan of what I do on TikTok, and has meant so much to me. And so we've been talking about doing this for a while, and finally carved out enough time for both of us to sit and talk about writing the biggest hit of his career and how he's still touring, but also getting ready to put out some new music soon that I got to hear that's like really incredible. Not to mention that Edwin is very much a TikToker himself. Hey, Edwin McCain, welcome to the Millennial Sleepover.
That's the best name for this ever. The Millennial Sleepover.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm still not sure if it's a great name. Well, you said it was. Now I got to keep it. I just realized most of the musicians I'm like interviewing are Gen Xers, but I'm a millennial, and I look like I'm gonna sleep over in all those videos. So.
Well, your voice. The first time I heard you say, "Hey, does anybody remember the time?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's on fire, man. He's got the greatest tagline. This is great."
Thanks, man. Yeah, a few people have talked about that, and I'm like, what's funny is like I have been in social media and YouTube for a while trying to promote my music and stuff, but that line specifically it wasn't even like premeditated. That's just how I talk when I'm high, and so. It happened the first time. Now it's intentional, obviously, because people know what it means. But I guess speaking of, you were probably the first artist that I talked about that like followed me back and DM'd me and stuff. And I don't even think it was for your video, right? It was like Fastball or something.
Yeah, no, it was for something else. So, see, the thing about it is, it's like I'm the biggest TikTok head. I mean, forget what I did for my job. I would have been all over TikTok anyway, right? just playing around and commenting. It's my favorite thing. And really the comment section it just renews my faith in humanity because people are so damn funny. Like there are just like drop dead comedians out there where I cry laughing at some of the ridiculous stuff people say in the comment section. I go, you know what? We're going to be okay.
Yeah. You're very well versed at TikTok. Yeah, totally. Like you would have been like one of the first viral musicians if like TikTok or, YouTube existed in the 90s. Like,
oh my God.
I saw, well, I guess we'll start at the beginning of that. Like, I think the very first time I saw you on TikTok, the series that now hadn't even started. I actually posted on Facebook. I'm going to pull up the post here. I'll send it to you too. I said, Edwin McCain made living this long worth it by making a TikTok where he bursts into his teenager's room to ask her what a Balussi Ussie is and if he's supposed to buy it for her.
What are Balussi Ussies? Is that like something I should be buying you?
That was the greatest moment of my life at that moment.
The best part of being this age is embarrassing her and then making her friends laugh at me because of how ridiculous I am. Yeah, I've embraced it fully.
Yeah, I love when you confront your kids about when their teachers play your music for them in class.
and I think some of it do it on purpose, and then sometimes it just happens like organically, like it's a complete accident. Like and they handle it differently. And I mean, they, it's worse for my daughter because she looks exactly like me in the video. Like right now, like she's the spitting image of me at 25. And it sucks for her because as soon as anybody shows the video, they're like, "Oh my God, that's you," and she's like, "Oh,
Oh no,
yeah."
yeah, because you had longer hair back then.
Oh yeah, that was the whole thing. It was the whole
That's
thing.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, you had, or you still have, like one of the most iconic songs of the '90s. And like I remember, so what's funny was I think I had posted about I could not ask for more, and then somewhere between
Right.
that and when I posted about I'll Be, you DM'd me, and it was the universal timing of it. You DM'd me like 2 hours before I had scheduled the I'll Be video to come out, so I like remember frantically messaging you back like, "Hey, this video's gonna post, and it's not because you messaged me."
Yeah, I know.
And
It's all good.
and I make a speculation in the video, and you feel free to tell me if I'm dead wrong or right. And you confirmed a lot of things that I just got from like vibes, so that might be a good place to start talking about this song. Growing up, I mean, when I was a kid, I think most of us were either marketed to or just had the understanding that "I'll Be" was like the wedding song, the wedding vows song. Is like in the '90s, I feel like especially a lot of artists were trying to go for that, right? Like All for One had "I Swear" and "I Could Love You Like That," and I think 98 Degrees and Mark Willis had a song straight up "I Do,"
Sure,
and
absolutely.
and then you had "I'll Be," and that's how I thought of it when I was like a preteen and a teenager. And then I was listening to it just, maybe a few days before recording that video. And I was like, I don't have any like basis for this other than I'm like in my 40s now and I've been this guy. But I feel like this song is about a guy that really fucked up and is trying to make it up at the last minute. And only, like I said, only from like being that dude, having friends that have been that dude, and it's like your like last ditch effort. And then you messaged me back, and you were like, "Yeah, this is something I said to a woman I knew that would leave me," and I don't know, like that is wild to think about that translated both ways. Like, how did that feel? Like when it ended up becoming like the biggest wedding song of the '90s?
Well, so I say this all the time. The art and music is not complete until it's been interpreted by an audience. And intention almost doesn't matter at that point. So interpretation, and if people interpret what you do and incorporate it into their life, then that's what it is. Like I would always resist explaining the lyric "love suicide" or even get too in depth with what I was trying to say with the song, because I didn't want to narrow the bandwidth. I always wanted the bandwidth to be whatever people needed from it, because I know that that's the way I would listen to Kings of Leon. Like I was wrong about all kinds of lyrics in their music, and man, there are some songs that meant totally different shit to me until I saw a lyric sheet. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that sucks. I like it the way and then I would just go back to singing it however I was singing it. And you know what I mean? Like, so I never really narrowed. I know what the song meant to me and why I wrote it, but that doesn't matter, right? And it still is that for me. And it shouldn't matter to anybody else. However they took it is the way I want them to have it. And you managed to interpret it correctly as far as my intention. But the truth about that song is that I was literally living in a one room apartment in Atlanta. I had a futon and a television, and I was not well.
Oh,
I was not mentally well, and I didn't know. I was in between. My first record had come out and sold a couple 100,000, and at that time, 250,000 was a failure. Like if you're on Atlantic Records, 250,000 records sold is an abject failure. Everybody on that label that was of note had sold million or more. And I got a call from the record label president saying, listen, whatever you turn in next better be great.
Oof.
And I had the beginnings of the song, and it was this amalgam of little notes I had written down and, ripped off pages and napkins, and it assembled them on my little coffee table in front of the futon. And I sat down and was like, man, this is a Hail Mary right here.
Right.
And wrote it in 15 minutes, 20 minutes later, I was like, this is a good song.
Oh, so you knew right away. That's awesome.
Yeah, and because I get real emotional on the good ones, like I got like I joke around, I got a little snotty nosed, and then I played it at a show and had an instant reaction to it, and was like, okay, we're on to something here. But it the real behind the scenes was the 3 stations that put it on. So Atlantic was like, okay, this is this kid's last chance. We're going to put this song on 3 stations.
Mm-hmm.
Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, and I want to say Mobile, maybe. I think that's what it was. And we're going to test it on 3 stations. And if we get any kind of blip in sales, then we'll move it up a little bit. And so I called my manager at the time and said, listen, how much money do you have in your checking account? Because this is our last shot, right? So we assembled our friends from college to go to these towns and buy these records and send them back to us. And then we would sell them again at our shows and double the sound scan and get the artificial blip that the record company needed to see. And to be fair, like, yeah, we knew that was, but what was my last shot? What are you going to do? So in the middle of this 3-ring circuit that we got going on, basically spending my last dollars, the record company president called me and goes, Jethro, he used to call me Jethro. He goes, Jethro, you better not have your cousins buying your records in Alabama. And I was like, I don't have any cousins in Alabama, which is factually true.
Yeah.
And we got a little bit of a blip to happen where they had airplay, we're selling records. Mm-hmm. So Atlantic then put the song in, they got their people to put it into the end of Dolphins Creek, the final episode of Dolphins Creek. And the sales went from 1,700 a week to 25,000 overnight.
Wow.
And so I knew the song had a chance. I just had to do whatever it took to get it into the chamber and shot out the gun. And so fast forward to about 5 years ago, I was playing golf with the same record company president. And we were riding in the golf cart, and I said, hey, man, you remember that time you accused me of buying my records in Alabama? And he goes, I knew you were doing that. Damn it, I knew you were doing it. I feel like I got to come clean. And he's like, I did it. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. I lied to you. And I but it worked.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure he was like, well, the money helps the forgiveness. So
the money they made off of me, oh my God. Yeah.
I mean, that's like, I didn't know that story. That was amazing. I think all you said when you messaged me was, and you weren't exaggerating, was it was a half court hook shot at a buzzer. Like that is.
It was my last chance. And, and I remember when I was writing that song about being better when I'm older, that was just like a prayer because I was in bad shape. I was in bad shape, man. I was not healthy mentally at all. So, it was kind of like, I hope this all works out.
So that was also for yourself and not just like a promise for her, right? Wow.
100%. No, that was a prayer.
Wow, that's incredible.
Throwing it up into the universe.
Yeah, that's such a great, like, because I've always wondered, because, I'm a songwriter in LA, but I'm doing a lot of, like, ads and stuff, so not a whole lot of, heart-wrenching Al-B stuff just yet, unless, if it is, we'll let it happen, but I've always wondered, like, how does it feel, like, do you know when you write Al-B, or do you know when you write Imagine, or do you know when you write, like, how does that feel, like, so, I guess I'll call you one day if that ever happens, we'll see if I'm right.
I don't know, the thing is like, I say that I thought it was a great song, but I don't know if that was just me, the importance of what I needed it to do.
Yeah. Save your life, literally.
I think this is a great song because I need it to be a great song.
Yeah. And I don't
Yeah.
I don't even fault you for like, buying your own records because there's that story of Taylor Swift's first album. Her father was wealthy and bought the first million or whatever. And me and my friends always say like, it's kind of like poker or any card game that's high stakes. Like you got to pay to play, but then when you get to the table, you have to be able to play. And you clearly have been literally playing for decades now. You're still on the road. Like I'm catching you in between tour dates and stuff. Like that's amazing. So, kudos to you for that. And also like it goes it gives more credence to like it has to start with like a really good song because not to say that your first album was necessarily like, bad or anything, but like you had some heavy hitters on that first one. Was it Honor Among Thieves had Darius Rucker on it from Hoodie
Well, so
Blowfish?
that's the other part of the story. So when Atlantic wanted to sign Darius and them, I was opening for them. They basically told Atlantic, "Yeah, we'll sign with you, but you got to give our friend a record deal too, and
Wow.
sing on his first single if you'll sign him." And they were like, "Yeah, whatever, bring the kid." And so I wasn't even really wanted that badly by Atlantic, and so. Darius, so it's a kind of it's such a funny convergence because you got to go back and look at Jason Flom's story because Jason was the president of Lava, which is the label that I ended up on, and they didn't know what to do with Jason because Jason had gone against the president, Doug Morris. Doug Morris told Jason Flom, "If you say the name Twisted Sister in this building again, I'm gonna have you escorted out." Jason didn't listen to him. Went through the European office, got Twisted Sister signed, and broke them against the president's will, and had hits, right? And so they were like, "Oh, what are we going to do with him?" Well, we're going to give him an imprint label and put him in a building. He's not even going to be in the building. We're going to put him in a separate building across the street and give him an imprint called Lava. And so he started signing Sugar Ray, Kid Rock. I mean, Jill Sobule, me. I was already on there, and so we had this little island of misfit toys having hits.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what to do with us, right? Like we literally were a little gang by ourselves with our leader Jason Flom, who was the king of oppositional defiance. And we had a bunch of people on the label that were all little oppositionally defiant, like musicians, and we were all together. Like I was doing free radio shows to get other people's songs added because they were on Lava. Like we were like that. It was like that. It was like a little, just a little team of misfit bands that were over there doing it, and like Uncle Cracker, and you know, it was the whole thing. It was a really cool time to be a part of it.
Man, it's that community that none of us, as listeners and stuff, like we're really like, getting like privy to. Like I didn't know you and Darius ran that deep. Like he vouched for you to get signed and all that stuff, and that's incredible.
We were playing open mic nights as freshmen at the University of South Carolina. They used to play at this little place called Muldoon's, and I used to go in there and bug them until they let me sing my one Bad Company song that I knew how to sing.
That's funny,
it's like that. That's how far back we go, and we're to be on tour with them now with Collect Your Soul, because also Ed was a champion for me at the label too. He was big at Atlantic. He was huge at Atlantic Records, and so he would go to the powers that be at Atlantic and go, "Look, man, this guy's really good. You guys need to pay attention to him," because I was not even a thought at Atlantic. And the reason I know this is because I snuck and got the secret code to the Tuesday morning conference call, the internal conference call. And I would sit in there and listen to them talk about the priorities of the label. And they wouldn't even mention me. I mean, I wasn't at the bottom of the list. I wasn't even on it.
Yeah. Was that the Z list or whatever?
Oh, yeah. Which is what it was.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, and I'm so upset that I missed that tour because you guys came to Anaheim, and it was a mix. It was a perfect storm of things. I had just had some like dental surgery or something, so I wasn't really supposed to be going out and partying. And then also like your manager at the time said, "Oh, he'll be busy." And then you ended up meeting my friend Carolyn Dutton and her buddy Dan Povenmire. And so I messaged Kara. I was like, "Kara, I think I got bumped for you and Dan." As it always works.
You didn't. You should have just reached out personally. But I mean, my kids were losing their minds that Dan Povenmire was in our dressing room because, like, all we did when they were little was watch Phineas and Ferb. And what's so funny is I kind of conjured it because I was watch Phineas and Ferb with my kids. Like, I'd watch it without them, honestly, because the music on that show is so dope. It's so good. And there's so many references to Gen X bands. Like, the kids would never know that they're sitting there referencing the Replacements or it's so many references. And I said to my wife one time, I was like, I'm gonna write music for this show one day. You watch. I don't know how, but I'm gonna write songs with this guy. And I'm literally sitting there telling Dan Povenmire this story. And he's like, we're going to have to make that happen. And I was like, wow,
that's
man.
incredible. Yeah, I was going to say they're working on the comeback of the show, so.
I know, they're making it again, which it should never have left the air, ever. Anyway.
No, and for anybody listening that doesn't know, Dan Povenmire and his partner Swampy, they write all the music for the show, so you might be like one of the few guests, if any, on there. But Dan and Swampy are so like disgustingly talented, because I was at Dan's house last summer, and someone I was with, I think it was Chloe Bean, some people might recognize her from TikTok and stuff, she was like, oh, is it hard to write these songs? And Dan's like, no, and he like grabs a guitar off his wall and he plays the Platypus song.
And I was like, he's a semi-aquatic, egg-laying mammal of action. He's a furry little flatfoot who never flinched from a fray. He's got more than just mad skill. He's got a fever tail and a bill. And the women swoon whenever they hear him say, he's Perry the platypus. Perry, agent. But I have that much of it.
And I was like, this is so, like, I might as well just quit. I've been trying to make it for 20 years. This guy can just like write, timeless songs.
and not just that, but like his business acumen too. So like he could switch from being like hyper creative to dealing with like the network.
Oh, wow.
And he was telling me some of the stuff like, because I was like, how does that work? Because I'm always curious about how you interface with, you take something really organic and then you cram it into a corporate box. And that was always my struggle, was like, I can't believe I'm getting ready to go play this new album in a boardroom with a bunch of executives. Like, that's what hell's going to be like for me, is the first play
pitching your album.
of my album. And, it's awful. But, I can only imagine, like, with something as big as what he's doing and the amount and the budgets and all the people he's got to talk to and all this stuff. And he was sort of explaining about how he handles it. And it was absolutely fascinating because he's not to be pushed around and won't be. Like, and for as like happy and go lucky as he is, like when he has to put the game face on and just basically go no, he does that too, which is really impressive because I'm not like that. I'm like, I'll die before I tell people no. I'm a chronic people pleaser, But it's so fascinating to see somebody that is totally actualized as Dan is. He just 100% together.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, but kind of rewinding a little bit to the Honor Among Thieves, another kind of like random connection is one of my internet music friends was also playing on your record, Lily Hayden. I did not expect to see that connection.
When I first got out to LA, I was like so in love with Lily. and I just followed her around and at the time, like, she did nothing but sit in and play gigs, like, with tons
Okay.
of people, right? And so she was always playing gigs. And I just, as soon as I could, I would just go wherever she was going to play gigs and, watch her, she's like a little superhero,
Yeah.
She's like, sit in without all these different people. And that's where I met Ronnie Jaffe.
Okay.
And we got Ronnie to play on this album too. But yeah.
Lily
Small world.
co-composes with my buddy Ben Bromfield on a show called Ginny in Georgia, so that's how I kind of like got to know her online and stuff. And plus, we're both in the recording academy and all that stuff. Anyway, then Albie comes out. You have Misguided Roses. That album also had its fair share of like recognizable names. You had like Beth Nielsen Chapman, Ashley Cleveland, Russ Taff, and is this the Michael McDonald we're thinking of that was on there? Wow. So like. And then another random connection. I forget if he mixed or mastered, but Richard Dodd. Actually, he mixed and mastered an album for a band I went to college with when we were in college at a student record label. He did us a solid, and I think he was like, "I made enough money for this year, so I'll just master your album for $1,000." It was like, "Oh man, that's retirement goals, right?" Is to pick some
Right.
indie band. But just judging by all that, I kind of realized later when I was older that you were really at your core like a bluesy rock guy, not as much as like a wedding singer.
No, and that's the thing about it. We were a jam band.
Mhm.
Like, we were playing with the Allman Brothers and Bob Weir and Warren Haynes and our friends. And I was up for the job. I was trying to get the singer job for the Aquarium Rescue Unit, which was Jimmy Herring and O'Teal Burbridge and Jeff Sight. And so, we were in this jam band world where and like Stringsteed's Incident used to open for
Yeah.
us.
Oh
I
wow.
mean, we were in that world, like fully in that world. And then we had a radio hit, and nothing ejects you from the jam band world faster than having mainstream commercial success. It's anathema to them. And John Popper and I laugh about it all the time because that was the same thing that kind of happened to them.
Yeah.
And so hey, I still I do what I do. I still play that way. And nothing's really ever changed. It's just right in the middle of our R&B set. There's some wedding songs.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like though that like you are part of your success with the mainstream is kind of proof that like the people who think things are simple, like you actually have to be like 10 times greater than that for the simple thing to really stand out. Like I say this about Kelly Clarkson as well. When I graduated college, one of my first jobs is I was running sound for her at a couple like little promo things, and people just don't know how much of a powerhouse. Well, now I guess they do a little bit more with their talk show, but at the time they didn't know how much of a powerhouse she was, and she's singing like "Since You've Been Gone" and stuff. But then you see what they can really do, and they have, and they come down to a level where it's just easy. And I can tell even just like seeing videos of you performing "I'll Be" to this date, like you still hit those high notes, which is wild because I can't sing like I did 10 years ago, let alone decades later.
Hey, 26-year-old me.
For writing that note.
Nightly, I'm like, you asshole. Like, why would you put this song in B and sing it at the top of your range every night? And I can't change the key because my sax player's been playing it in B
Yeah.
this entire time. And then, okay, we're going to drop it a half step. Like, that sucks for him. So I'm not doing that. And,
Yeah.
it's one of those deals. I'll sing it until I can't.
Hopefully it'll be a long time. Yeah, and also I feel like audiences, they know when keys are changed, for songs and stuff. And speaking of that sax, I brought that up in the video. Like it's such like tasteful and like forgotten, element in music. You almost don't know what you're missing until you go back and listen to it. Like, oh wow, and, like I don't feel like many modern artists now would like produce a song with an intro that just has like a sax wailing right at the beginning.
Yeah, and to be fair, like they made us re-record it because
Okay.
the initial recording was like a jazz record where you could hear like fiddle in the reed, like it was so cool. And we loved it because it was all like, it was inside, and they were like, "What's that sound?" It sounds like, well, it sounds, there's some kind of like static sound. I'm like, yeah, that's spit in the reed of the saxophone that makes it fucking cool.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, no, we'll tell you, we got to re-record that. Then they made it like, soften it up and make it more pop. And I get it. I mean, obviously at that point, when, my mantra was, once I had signed with Atlantic, I was like, all right, let's just play ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be difficult. I want to be like, I want to bring a basketball to the basketball court and play as many games as we can before they kick us out of here.
Yeah.
And so that was my mindset. So I just did whatever they said and wore whatever they told me to wear. And, which is why there's so many great photos of us just like wearing shit and looking with these uncomfortable looks on our faces because and haircuts I would never have. It's hilarious. I tell my daughter this stuff and she's like, "Oh my God, what were y'all thinking?" I was like, "I was just doing whatever they said."
Yeah. I was like, "Yeah, you gotta wear the makeup today."
They picked me up one time. We were in New York and they picked us up and one of the Atlantic people, the promotion people, they were like, "Listen, we're going to take you to Barney's today." And I was like, "Oh, cool. What kind of food do they have?" And they're like, "No, you idiot. It's a clothing store.
Yeah.
You dress like a farmer. Your song's number 5. We got to do something with you." And so I was like, all right. So we went and bought expensive suits and stupid stuff that I had to pay for.
I was gonna say that's a hard pill to swallow, right? When you know that you're the one footing the bill, and it's also something you'd never wear, but like you said, it's the game.
So I flipped the script on that. So my thought was, I need to spend as much money as they will let me spend, so they have to push the record to get it back.
Yeah.
So I did. I spent. I would PO them for anything I could think of just to see if they would pay it, and they did. I mean, we blew through millions of dollars so that they were on the hook for millions of dollars, and they had to push it. Like, they're not going to just lose a couple of $1,000,000. I mean, Messenger, the recording of that alone was $750K. And
wow.
I had catering and like anything I could add on, I was adding it on. And they were like, "Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "Just trust me. They're going to push it. And I'm going to squeeze an extra 5 years out of my career with Atlantic."
Wow. I'm taking business notes from you, man. Like, I would have never thought about that. That's awesome. Like,
oh yeah, no, yeah. If they have enough skin in the game, they'll make it. They're gonna make it back. They're not just gonna let you ride off into the sunset with a $2 million bill.
Some other friends, we say the same thing about like larger corporations. When things like this come up, we're like, well, they might be evil, but they're not stupid. So if you know that, you can use it.
100%. But also, to be fair, I was literally getting other people's records added to radio stations. I had such a good relationship at radio that I was moonlighting like a radio promotion, and I was on the board. Like they would give me credit for ads. Like I was.
Oh wow.
I was all over the place, and I was like a fungus at Atlantic. Like they're gonna have to use some powerful chemicals to get rid of me. So
That's hilarious. Yeah, I had a little bit of experience with that a couple summers ago. I did a photo shoot and a video shoot for, I don't know if I can name the label. It was one of the majors for an internal project. No one else is ever going to see this, but the photos, some people will see, like it's my profile picture where my hair is flipping and there's a yellow background and there's a bunch of clothes that, like you said, I was like, this shirt is how much? And then I got to buy it. Like, I think I ended up returning some of it afterwards. Like, I don't have this money, And you said the uncomfortable looks. Like, I guess this is the first time I talked about this here, but that suit that has all the comic book stuff on it in my profile picture, it looks great. And I almost kept it because how good the pictures came out. But like the pants, they're just assuming that you don't have any like thing happening in the crotch area. And I was screaming the whole shoot.
And you really get a sense of like what these poor fashion models go through, because like I with every fiber of my being, I hate photo shoots. Like
Yeah.
when I have to do photos now, I call a photographer and go, listen, I just want you to know this. I hate photo shoots, and I'm going to be there for maybe an hour. So whatever you got to do, to do this as quickly as possible, because at the hour mark, I'm gone. I'm done. Because one thing I learned about photographers and cameramen, they'll shoot all day. If you let them, they'll shoot for 24 hours. It never ends. Like, I was like, all right, there's nothing. And we were one time, we were doing a photo shoot with this really expensive photographer in Manhattan. And I'm not going to say his name because he's probably embarrassed that he ever worked with us, but he was famous, right? Like super famous. And like the shoot, I remember the shoot was like $150,000 just to shoot us, which now you just go, what? Right. But as the day went on, there's more and more shade and shadow on my face. And I felt bad for him because he's just doing everything he can to deal with my giant head. Right. and at one point I go, hey man, I'm really sorry about my giant head. It's a problem. And he's holding the camera. He goes, it's unbelievable. He was so upset. He was so upset with it. And you could see it was just making him madder and madder. And then, unbelievable. And everybody in my band cried laughing. Like that's never left our universe. Like in varying degrees, somebody in the crew will go in the middle of it, like a sound tech will go, unbelievable. It just makes us so happy. It was just one of those, God, I wish we had it. I wish we had video of that moment. It was like an SNL sketch. It was just so perfect.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, it's funny because I don't think most people would kind of see you as the guy that would like play the game, but it's smart. It's how you have, get the backing for like such timeless songs, because you follow that up with I Could Not Ask for More, which I didn't realize Diane Warren penned until I think you and some commenters brought it up.
And it seems like I was playing the game, but I literally told them no.
Yeah.
Like, so this is how this went down. They said, hey, Diane Warren wrote a song for you. And I said, who's Diane Warren? And they go, you don't know who Diane Warren is? I was like, no, I've been listening to the Replacements and like Husker Du.
They're like, leave.
And Black Flag. And they're like, Diane Warren. So she's written 100 hit songs. I was like, well, I don't care because I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I got my own songs. Forget it. And they were not expecting that. Like, they were like, okay, now what do we do? And I was like, I don't care, but give it to somebody else. I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back to making my record. This is when we were making Messenger. Then they came back and they said, well, look, what if we pay you to do the song and we put it on a soundtrack? And I was like, sure, how much? Okay. I'll do anything for money, like whatever, So they basically paid me, like I had like $50,000 to cut the song and then put it on this Message in a Bottle soundtrack. And I was like, all right, cool. All right. Yeah. All right. So I figured, I was like,
yeah, you're done.
All done. Well, what I didn't know is they were going to immediately run out to radio and take that out there as a single while we were still making our record. And so they put it on the air and it started to move. And they were like, guess what? It's going on your record. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay. Well, maybe we should do that.
Right.
But so, that's how stupid I am. I mean, that's how dumb I was at that time. And, I got to know Diane, and she's fabulous. Like, I think the world of her. And she's hilarious, and she's got a potty mouth, and she's just, like, she and I got along famously. And knowing what I know of her now, I'd happily do a Diane Warren song. Now, it was not the song we ended up with is not the song she sent over. Like,
Oh,
it
so you
was
did
a
change
different.
it.
Yeah, the tempo was all, and I omitted one verse. I was like, I can't even sing this. I said, Diane, this is Hallmark card stuff. I can't.
Yeah.
And so,
I love your relationship
so,
there.
No, and but the thing about it is, like you should hear her on the phone. She's like a sailor. I mean, she literally will call me up, and her nickname for me is Smashed Assholes. and the reason why is because I was at the studio with her one day, and I showed up there hungover, and she said, "How do you feel today?" And I was like, "I feel like a truckload of smashed assholes." And from then on, that's what she called me. And so our relationship was great, and I love her, and don't get me wrong. So, but when I'd never heard of her, and so I didn't want to do the song, so I just accidentally ended up with a song that ended up being another wedding song, which is great. Like, it extended my life another record with Atlantic. So, hey, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And then we did another one. I did another one of her songs for a movie soundtrack with her and David Foster, and that was an incredibly cool experience. And so yeah, it was a turn I never saw coming. You know, I just never saw myself in those, being considered in those circles. I was always like, in my mind, I was the journeyman bar singer guy,
right,
in the R&B kind of Southern rock band, so it was cool to be considered in that conversation for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I couldn't ask for more. I can't believe I didn't know that, because even when I was like really young, before I went to school for music, I idolized Diane Warren because of all the songs she had written. And even to this day, when people ask like, well, what's your goals for your career? I was like, to do whatever Diane Warren did, like write hits for everybody from like Edwin McCain to Aerosmith to, everybody. But
to be fair, like, so when you cut a Diane Warren song, you get Diane. And what happens, what that means is Diane gets on the phone and calls up program directors. And,
gotcha.
And if they're not playing it, she cuts them out. and if they are playing it, she cuts them out because they're not playing it enough. So
That's
you
incredible.
end up with this wildcat radio promotion person whose name just also happens to be Diane Warren.
Yeah.
And so I'm banging the phones, calling program directors, because my whole game was, I love the radio promo stuff because that was something I could control. Like, I went into one of the stations and bought $1,500 worth of Girl Scout cookies from a program director's daughter, because guess what was getting the ad today?
Yeah.
Me. And the guy that was the same way. She was literally call and berate these guys if they weren't playing her songs enough. And so to get a Diane Warren song is great, but you also get her with it. And everybody that knows her is like, oh my God, it's just easier to do what she says than to tell. So she's going to give it to you. She's like, she's not fucking around. This is her whole life. All she cares about is this. And it was fantastic. Like, I would hear from program directors, so it would be like, your buddy Diane called me today and cussed me. I'm like, yeah, well, you're not playing the song enough.
That's funny. That's what my dad says about my mom. He's like, it's just easier to go with her.
And there's nobody else. Nobody's like her. I mean, she's the only one of her. Like, she did that. She did.
Yeah.
So
I remember once social media started rolling around, I followed her on Instagram. Totally shattered the vision I had of her when I was in high school. She's amazing.
Yeah, you thought she was some mouthy little artsy woman, and no, not even at all. She's a total tornado.
Yeah,
and that's why I loved her. Like, when I got to know her, I was like, oh my God, she's just like me. She like we had known each other a day, and we're riding around arguing like we are an old married couple. Like, it was just so refreshing too, because most of the time you have to hold back and you have to be so careful, and because you don't want to upset anybody, but she did not give a flying fuck. And I love that about her.
That's incredible.
Amen, sister.
Yeah. So you have this legacy now of these like mainstream hits, but you've also like kept up with, you're a jam band now, right? Like pretty much like you still have a lot of the same guys and you're going around touring around the country and I love your tour bus tours on on TikTok. Like we had do you have like there was like a meter on one of your tires? You're like, we have to check this because the thing inside doesn't work, and you rescued it from a fire or something.
Yeah, so my bus has now become a main character in our whole story, Queenie. So that's another thing. Like I am universally and oppressively cheap when it comes to what do we need to do and what's the cheapest way to make that happen. So now that I don't have Atlantic paying for everything and I'm paying for everything, it's like, all right, well, we need a bus. We got to have a bus, and we can't lease buses anymore because, that's too expensive. Well, so I just built a bus. The first bus I built was a seated coach called the Black Pearl, and there was a whole saga with this bus, and we drove it all around the country, and it was a total POS. But god dang it, that bus never left us stranded. And I traded it from the Black Pearl into another bus that we called Hillary Stuff because
Nice.
because Hillary Duff made an illegal edit in my song she didn't. Well, the record company did.
Okay.
They made an edit in I'll Be. They took out the words love suicide. Well, you can't do that. That's silly. Can't make it.
Oh, for her movie.
Yeah, you can't make edits in people's songs without clearance.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have it. And so I sued them, and we got enough to buy this bus, right? So I bought this bus. Then I sold that bus, and we got African Queen had been in a fire, and I got African Queen for like $50,000, and we rebuilt the roof inside where the fire had gotten into, and put 5 new air conditioners on it, and that bus is like the Millennium Falcon. We took all the safeties off on the engine. It'll go 150 miles an hour. That bus is a rocket. It doesn't have all the DPF filters and it's a 1999, so I can still run paper logs. And there's a method to the madness. Now, it's kept in mechanically excellent condition. Cosmetically, maybe not so much, but you can hang meat in there. It's if you want it to be 50 degrees in there, it can be 50 degrees. It's comfortable. It goes fast. I don't have a payment. It's
that's a
it's
dream.
the life I'm gonna own. It's a character in our lives now, and it's funny. Like one of the refrigerators went down, and it's like a really expensive under the counter refrigerator. It's like $2,500 to replace it. Nope.
Yeah.
That space is now shelves.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I grew up in an immigrant family, so I know that. Like, do we need it? No, we're good.
We're good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's fun. It cracks me up because it serves so many purposes. Because deep down inside, I was influenced so heavily by this Southern California punk music that inside I'm a punk rocker.
Yeah.
And so showing up in my beater old bus and doing my thing and not having people tell me what to do is my favorite thing ever. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's I find as much joy in that as I do in playing the shows. Just our little, I got my same band and crew, and we've been, elbowing out our little living this whole time, and nobody can figure out why. It's a head scratcher to so many people in this business. And I'm not, I gave up being cool 20 years ago. So if you like what we do, and then, and people, like, our crowd gets it. I feel like, we don't have a ton of fans, but they come to every show.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say you have enough that you're still touring decades later. Like I didn't keep up in the middle, but did you? You didn't really ever stop, right? You just kind of kept going.
no, I literally just kind of went back to being indie, and I play seated 500 to 1,000 seat places, and I go on early.
Yeah.
Lately, our start times are 7 p.m. And I got guys high-fiving me after shows like, dude, I'm home by 9:30.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
no, seriously.
you know,
Like that's half the reason I don't go to concerts myself as much anymore because I'm like, it starts at 9? Like what what are we doing, man? I'm in my 40s. I can't do that.
No,
Like,
it's my favorite thing. Like, not time, no openers, like evening with,
yeah.
start at 7. I'll play 2 hours. I do a 90-minute reel. I go, that's the end of the real show. And now I'll play I walk out there acoustic guitar and then just play like requests of all the weird old shit that I can barely remember how to play. And then it's 2 hours and everybody's good. Everybody's happy. We're good. Everybody's out by
Yeah.
9.
Oh,
That's
that's
exactly the way to do it.
I feel like for most musicians, like that's the dream, and you and your band, you have the touring bug. Like I toured with either solo or like my old band and stuff for almost 20 years, and I remember the last time I drove back into California, I could just feel the tour soul leave my body. I was like, that was a good run, but I can't do this anymore. You know, and you're still doing it, man.
And to be fair, like we're on a clock. I mean, we've put a date out there in the future where we're gonna call it
Like retire.
a day. And I think it's one of those things where I just never. And I've got some close friends of mine that will tell me, I'm like, listen, man, if I ever waddle out there and you feel people go, oh, it's time for I need to know that because it's time for it to be done, right?
Yeah.
I don't want that. I think it's if you can't deliver it in the best light, it's time to move out of the way.
Well,
And that's always been in the back of my mind too. Is like there's a whole another generation of kids that are ready to take these stages and say what they're gonna say, and there's no shame in moving out of the way and being a steward and saying, come on, this is your time, your space, get on here and do your thing.
That's some great like thinking that I think you've had for a while, because if I remember right, there's a clip that you shared recently, or maybe it was before and I just saw it recently, of when you were 21 saying that you were going to make it.
Yeah, and then I go to Colorado for the winter.
You never did tell us your name.
Life is definitely tough.
What's your name now?
Edwin McCain.
Okay, what do you plan on doing? What are your aspirations?
My aspirations are getting this disc out in August, getting southeastern distribution, and within 3 years, hopefully nationwide.
Okay, who's your manager?
Right now, Resort Entertainment Specialist, Shannon
Good.
Tanner.
Good, you want to play on the circuit, big
I'd
time?
love to play on the circuit.
Solo acoustic?
Solo acoustic.
That's it?
Yep.
That's all she wrote.
That's all there was to
You
it.
got a lot of good originals. We heard two of them, got them both on film. And you want a copy, let us know.
I want a copy, and here's my card.
How are it? Can you hold that up for us here?
My real cards haven't come inside to scribble my name on there.
All right, there you go. How old are you, Edwin?
21 years old.
Oh, God. Almost too old for this business.
Almost, I am. And my window of opportunity is fleeting.
Okay.
And you were on like a set time clock, so that clock has been with you since you were in your early 20s, and you're still on that thinking now. That's a really good like career. I don't even want to say it a plan, because you've just kind of been going with it, but like just like this like architecture for your career.
And I saw that. I didn't post that. It's funny. Somebody found that on YouTube and reposted. I had seen it, and obviously I remembered saying it, but I don't feel any different than that kid. And a lot of what keeps me doing this is I honor that kid.
Oh,
Like, I think back to that 21-year-old I was sitting there on that deck, and I was so thrilled to have that gig behind the Holiday Inn at the Tiki Hut,
yeah.
playing 4 hours a day in the sun, to totally
So like
literally,
5 people,
like,
including the bartenders.
yeah, no, it depends on the day, but
Yeah.
but there was like literally, it was, I was making $150 for 4 hours, and I was King Midas in my mind. I was like, I couldn't believe people were paying me $150 to play guitar.
Yeah.
And I look back at that kid, I think about that, and I was playing 10 shows a week. I would play 3 on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
I would play that gig 12 to 4. Then I would play another gig across the island 6 to 10. And then the final gig 10:30 to 1:30 at a different place. And I would pack up all my gear and fly over. I was playing 3 4-hour gigs, and I didn't think anything of it, right? And I was putting in my 10,000 hours, and I was like, I couldn't imagine being any luckier than that. And I have to remind myself regularly of how that felt, right? I couldn't have been happier.
That's amazing. And just like having you tell the story about I'll Be kind of adds that song now to a category that so far has only ever had, for me, Shania Twain's You're Still the One. In that, like, now being a little bit older, I feel like you just mentioned, keeping the promise to your younger self. Like, I talk about, like, listening to You're Still the One, thinking about your younger self, like, we made it, even though nobody said we couldn't. Now I'm listening to I'll Be in my head, thinking, like, that's the same thing. Is, like, you said you were going to be better, and so you got to keep that up. You got to keep that promise.
And playing, like, I being able to go out and play in front of Hootie's crowds where you got 15,000 people in an amphitheater or even in an arena, and they all sing along to the song, because I would never be able to draw 15,000 people anywhere. But when I can play to Hootie's crowd and there's 15,000 people singing I'll Be, it's pretty fun. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's a pretty rewarding thing. But I've been playing this new song called When It Does in the set.
Yeah.
And it's the first time since Walk With You or I'll Be, it's the first time I've had a reaction like this to a new song. And I don't tell people it's a new song. I literally, I told my manager, there was 15,000 people in Nashville that were pin drop silent to a song they'd never heard from a guy they didn't come to see. And I was like, if that doesn't tell you that this song's got something, I don't know what to tell you, because, and it happens every night, and I'm in love with this song, and hopefully it'll go out here and do something. I just got to find the right TV show to get it into.
Well, I'll link it in the description to this. Like, if there's any music supervisors out there or somebody who wants to push it, like,
right.
Yeah, no, also just everybody listen to it. Give it a spin. Streaming's the new radio. So
it hasn't been released yet. I'll send you a mix of it.
Yeah, man. Like you've given us like the most memorable like 2-note melody I think in decades, and it's just I don't know. What a crazy legacy. Before you go, if you don't mind, I would love to show you some internet covers of I'll Be to react to.
Love
All right,
it.
cool. I'll do a few of those. Okay, so this first one is Francis Gregg, or that's their name on YouTube.
And tell me,
What a voice.
Together, dress it up with the trappings of love. I'll be captivated. I'll hang from your lips.
He's even getting your embellishments right.
It's amazing.
That hang from above. And I'll be your crying shoulder.
There's that waltz time, you can't help but sway.
And I'll be better when I'm older. I'll be the greatest fan of your life.
I mean, that's better than I did it. So good. Like, I got a little emotional listening to that. If you told the 21-year-old that kids all over the world were going to be learning and singing a song that you wrote, I don't think I would have believed it.
Right.
And I would have been so fired up to know that had happened. Like I would have run around, like I would have sprinted through the parking lot to get on a payphone.
Yeah.
To call my parents.
This next one is an artist named Starletta, and I thought this was an interesting take because it's more of like a synth kind of take on it.
My living proof that love is alive and not dead. And tell me that we belong together. Dress it up with the trappings of love. I'll be
I like those suspended chords he's playing.
Right.
your lips instead of the gallows of heartache that hang from above. And I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be love's
That's an
true
interesting choice.
side. And I'll be better when I'm older. I'll be the greatest fan of your life.
This is solid stuff, man.
It's funny because the visual doesn't match the song, right? It feels like he should be singing like Sepultura. Or
Right.
something.
He's got all the tats and everything. He's jacked.
But it's funny because I used to write with this guy in Greenville. This guy named Dwayne Evans, and Dwayne and I used to write nightly in his studio, and he was a piano player by his main axe was keyboards.
Mhm.
And every night when we would finish doing demos, I would go, "God damn it, Dwayne, do not put belly keyboards on this fucking song. If you put belly keyboards on this, I'm gonna fucking kill you." And every morning when I'd come back, and there'd be belly keyboards all over everything. And so I just developed this absolute, like, I have an allergy towards belly keyboards, and as soon as I heard that kid playing belly keyboards, I was like, "Damn it, Dwayne."
Damn it. I didn't know that was a trigger.
No, I'm over it now.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that version of it.
That's
It's
incredible.
fine. Plus, he plays singing into an SM7. I like
Right.
SM7s.
Yeah, there's solid mics. This next one is a countrified version by Randall King.
I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be love suicide.
It's incredible, like how just
I like-
changing the swagger.
I like the swagger. I like the chord change. He changed it up.
Mhm.
Like,
The greatest fan of your life.
yeah.
It just
Like
works.
he's going to put the guitar down and go ride a bull.
Right. This next one I thought was kind of unique because we're used to hearing acoustic covers, and obviously it's a ballad, so slow covers and stuff. And this one is an instrumental version, but it looks like, I don't know if they're playing at a wedding or something, but it's a string cover. It's a violin and cello version. But to me, it really showed off. Well, I'm going to show you the middle section here. It really showed off how well your bridge works for a string arrangement. This is Alexandria Pritchard. I still see you on top of that building.
Dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're really on those 16th notes.
Yeah. Keep it
No,
moving.
that's cool. Yeah, so I got all the music charted for symphony at one point, so we can play all the way up to 90-piece orchestra.
Oh, damn.
And so I've done that a few times with the Atlanta Symphony, with Cleveland Symphony, and God, I'm trying to think, Wilmington. Anyway, it's nerve-wracking to play with symphonies because I
Right.
can't read music. and I'm not at all trained.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so the arrangements that I have were, they're complicated.
Yeah.
And they're not at all like I play it live. So I have to basically just like cram and memorize all these other arrangements
Mm-hmm.
for all the other songs. And so I always get through. One time I got through all the complicated arrangements, and we got to I'll Be, and the arrangement for I'll Be is exactly the way I play it every night. So I get to I'll Be, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I finally I can just coast all the way out. And I was in the middle of coasting and just forgot where I was in the song and missed the bridge.
Oh no.
Like literally of the big hit. Right?
Yeah.
I got it. And symphonies it's like a freight train.
Yeah, they're going.
It's going. And so, it was one of those things I had to just eat it and catch up and
Do your own
then
song.
kick myself. Yeah. Then kick myself, 100 times over because you idiot, that's why everybody came.
Yeah.
And I was just so focused on trying to remember all these other complicated arrangements
Yeah.
that ADD me took over.
Yeah. Playing to a conductor is like a skill in its own.
Well, and the conductor that we have in Greenville, it's an interesting story. He was a famous Russian he was a famous Russian conductor from St. Petersburg,
Mhm.
and he was on a tour. This is during the 80s. He was during USSR,
Yeah.
the Brezhnev's time, and he was here with his family on a tour in Greenville. And they had him. His son was young at the time, and they had gotten him together with this Russian ballerina that knew how to speak Russian, and so they had small children, and so they thought it'd be fun to take him to Chuck E. Cheese on Haywood Road, where he announced his intentions to defect.
Oh.
And so
Dang.
in Chuck E. Cheese, and so they literally called the FBI, snuck him out a side door, and now he lives in Simpsonville, South Carolina, and is the conductor, or was the conductor for the Greenville Symphony Orchestra. And I've done shows with him,
Mhm.
and he's like a caricature of conductors.
Yeah.
Like super, everybody's scared of him. He's very brusque. The first time I met with him, he goes, trying to understand that in between your songs, there's a lot of blah, blah, blah. And I just started dying laughing. Right? I was like, well, yeah, you're right. It's a lot of blah, blah, blah. and so, like, I feel like there should be a plaque up at the old Chuck E. Cheese. Like, this is a Cold War. There's a monument where this guy defected. And, it's that world. And I don't know how much you've been around. It's a different world. Like, there are people, you could be in the middle of a sentence and the orchestra manager comes up and hits a watch and goes, all right, time's up. And everybody just stands up and walks away. And everybody's got humidity and temperature gauges, because if the temperature changes by 4 degrees, they leave, because they're playing an instrument from the 1200s
Mm-hmm.
that is priceless, and it can't suffer, any kind of temperature fluctuations or humidity. And it's a different, meanwhile, we're riding around in a van
Right.
looking for guitar strings.
Yeah, you're like tuning by ear.
And whenever we do these things, I always feel bad for the players, because they spent their whole lives learning how to play Wagner,
Mhm.
and now they're sitting behind me sawing away on whole notes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sorry, guys, but
You get paid.
What we're doing tonight.
Got a couple more here. This one is from a YouTube channel called Mill Music, and this, I don't know what the situation is, but it seems kind of similar to what you were talking about, playing, gigs at like Holiday Inns and stuff. I don't know if this is necessarily that, but it looks like some sort of like regular setup. But they got a legit setup. Like, look, he's got his guitars with probably all the different tunings back there, and their pedals and the monitors. They got a cameraman who's willing to go behind a bush. I feel like he's doing a pretty good impression of you, actually.
He's doing, yeah, he's got me down. Ah, man. Are you playing a Telecaster?
I can't. I'm not good with like guitar models and stuff.
Yeah, he was playing a Telecaster. But here's the thing. So the Philippines call I'll Be the second Filipino national anthem.
Okay, I can see that.
They jokingly call it that. We went over there and played with Taylor Dane.
Oh, wow.
Because they love,
Touch Myself.
And so we played in an arena in in Manila. It's like 20,000 people, but they're really only there to hear one song.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a complicated hour and 15 minutes before I got to the song. If I ever go back over there again, I'm just going to go back over and sing I'll Be 15 times and have a different person on stage singing it with me.
Edwin McCain presents The Night of I'll Be.
Yeah, Edwin karaoke.
That would be a great like kind of viral video idea if you ever go over there, just like to do it like kind of surprisingly and stuff. Have someone videotape it while it's going on.
100%, but I don't even know. Like they wouldn't recognize me because it's not like they're fans of me. They're fans of that song, right? Like I just see some old gray guy, but that's the part. That's the beauty of it, right? Like I feel like the great songs really transcend the writer.
Yeah.
And a generation from now, there's somebody else going to be singing that song, and they'll make it their own, and and everybody will, love the song because of their version or whatever. And I think that's going to be, that's how it is. Like, we're stewards of this music for a short period of time, and hopefully it lives on.
Yeah. Speaking of the next generations, this was from a while ago from an artist named Kina Grannis. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I think she got her start on YouTube. This was from 16 years ago, so probably from when she started her YouTube channel around then. And she covered I'll Be, but she's gone on to do like a lot of great things, including she sang the cover of Can't Help Falling in Love at the wedding scene in Crazy Rich Asians. But also it's like done a lot of different things. But I think it was kind of cool to look at like the olden days of YouTube. She picks it up a little bit.
I like it. My drummer wishes I played it at this tempo.
And she's great control in her lower range.
It's kind of a mark. Yeah, I love it.
You've already seen it, but I think it's funny to think about this. Like, people forget that Justin Bieber was a YouTube musician. I mean, to think that, like, you kind of had a little bit to shape, like, one of the biggest artists of, like, maybe the millennium.
I was getting blamed for him. I wish he would do it. I wish he would recut it. Every time baby if he did a new version.
Justin, if for some reason you see this, if someone shows it to you.
For the 70th anniversary of the song.
Yeah. I love how he's not even like, he doesn't care about the camera. He's just like playing it, you know?
It's so amazing to see that song is just like a magic carpet. You know, it's taking me to the decks of aircraft carriers and, you know, weddings and funerals and bedsides at in hospice, and I said it really does. It hits home. The music swooped in and just saved me at the last second with that song, and it just keeps going. It's like, and for years people go, "When are you going to put out a new album?" And I would go, "I'm not," because, well, what about doing a no single? Well, why? Because that one's still going. Am I going to walk into a radio programmer's office and go, "Hey, this song you've been playing for 20 years, like, let's take it off the air and try something new."
Yeah.
No, I'm cool, man. I think part of that comes with, I learned what enough is, right?
Yeah.
Like I went, when I got back to being in my little indie world, it's more than enough. It's way more than I deserve. So
Well, I don't know about that. You
then-
gave us like such a great songs and even more music. Just because it's not the main single, like you've just been giving all your fans and music since I was a kid.
And I'm still, and Lee Brights taught me into doing this record we're getting ready to release now, and it was so touching that this new group of superstars like Matt Ramsey from Old Dominion and Lee and those guys were like, "Come on, man, you need to get back out here and make a record." And then the Hootie guys are like, "Let's go on tour." And I made the command decision just to live in my little indie bubble and raise my kids. And I have a side business. I'm running an excavator, and, I'm just kind of doing my thing. And it's been really touching to be brought back into the conversation. And obviously, like with you, and TikTok has been a revelation, because I didn't realize how many people had, and how much they felt about the song and the music. And it's just been really encouraging to be able to go, okay, yeah, maybe I should do this again. I'm going to make another lap at it and see what happens. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously do what you feel is best, but my vote is for do more music, because I know you see it every once in a while because people tag you, but that video I done like maybe a year or more ago, and you know how videos on TikTok work. They die in a week. I still get comments on that video about like what that song meant to people and stuff, and that's priceless,
And it's not lost on me that once again that song is swooping in and taking me on another ride,
right.
And here I go, right? All right, cool, let's do it. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to go do another set at the Tiki Hut, just like to, just to kick things off, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like start whatever, like when you do your new record, like make that first gig like that Holiday Inn.
I think I might actually do that. That would be hilarious.
That'd be fun. Invite me. I'm gonna go.
I absolutely will. I will. That's a good idea. I'm gonna send that in a text to my manager right now.
That's
like absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, man, for your time and for the music, obviously, through the years. It's meant so much to so many of us. And also, thanks for just being, like, a cool person on the internet. Like, I never in a million years, you talk about younger you. If you would have told me, like, when I first heard I'll Be, that this dude would be, like, DMing me in my 40s, like, respecting my takes on songwriting and stuff, I would have died.
Well, here's the thing, though. But, your takes on everything are so spot on. Like, and they're informed. So, but that's the difference, right? Because a lot of people just pop off and whatever, but like what you bring to the conversation is an educated understanding of what makes things cool, and I appreciate it. I'm glad we're friends.
Thanks, man. It make me tear up now, like, because I mean just. Because I told the story before, but like when I was like in a kid, I remember being in like youth group, and my one of my best friends at the time like pulled me off to the side and was like, "Hey Rod, you really got to stop talking about these songs because like nobody cares, and I want people to like you." And then in my 20s, same thing happened. I was at music school, and people were like, "Stop talking about songwriting." And then my 30s, my best friend forever is like, "Hey, nobody cares." Then something happened in my 40s is like, I don't care anymore. And I popped an edible one night, and I laid down on this couch behind me, and I made that first video about Shania Twain and Britney Spears, and here we are, you know?
I love it, dude. I like seriously. If you can't ever. You gotta be myopic about the things you love, and who cares what anybody says? It's not gonna matter anyway. And like I remind myself every night before I go on stage. I stand on the side of the stage, and I make myself laugh because I think of what Voltaire said: "Things that are too stupid to be spoken are sung." And then I walk on stage.
So true.
And then you go. Then what's there's no pressure. Right? Like I just go out there and I tell younger singers and people that are just starting out, like whatever you're going to do it with abandon, because that's the only way anybody's ever going to pay attention to you, because they want to know why you don't care what they think.
Yeah.
They're going to want to know, you know?
I'm trying to reclaim that for myself, because just the kid I was always kind of like told what to do. So I'm in my 4th decade now, so like, what have I got to lose?
My 40s was my favorite.
Nice.
I mean, honestly,
I'm looking forward to it.
My favorite. So enjoy. So
thanks, man. Thanks for joining the podcast. You're like the second episode of this podcast. I'm so nervous about this podcast, but you made it so easy to talk about these songs and stuff.
Hey, I'll pass you along to people.
Well, thanks, man, for everything, and we'll see you making new music. We're going to link your new song whenever it comes out, and hopefully see you on tour. You're still going at it. I will admit that I thought I was pretty prepared for this episode, and I was just not expecting Edwin to make me tear up and get emotional there at the end. But he's such a great guy, such a talented songwriter, and I will be forever grateful for I don't know, just affirming things that I had noticed in various songs, not just his, and also with connecting me to several other potential future guests. So if you can guess, I purposely cut out who he mentioned there. If you can guess who's coming up next, leave that in comments or reviews or whatever. And hopefully we'll see you in a couple more weeks, if I can get it together, for the next conversation I have with some iconic songwriters. I'm super excited. Thanks for keeping this going 2 episodes in. Once again, I'm super new at this, so if you could, leave a like, subscribe, positive feedback, whatever it is on where you're watching or listening from, be much appreciated. And until then, let me know what other songs and artists you think I should be talking about and talking to.